Hello everyone, welcome to my channel finally. It's been so long and I have been quite busy with my work and study in Iceland, but finally I could be able to make this episode together with my Dutch friend Jelle.
Good morning.
Hi, and greetings from Amsterdam. So I've been actually thinking about a lot to do an episode to talk about Netherlands and Iceland, because in one of my previous video I was talking about studying in Netherlands with my roommate Andre, and he was studied in Leiden. So that has kind of influenced me how I decided to do this episode to talk about Netherlands and Iceland. 1 week here in Netherlands, I have visited 9 cities thanks to my friend. So it's been really amazing trip. We're just gonna do like a little bit summarize for the cities that we visited.
Oh, by the way, you forgot to say something.
Oh, without further ado, let's get started.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, so the first city that we visited was Sandnessjön. Sandnessjön. Sandnessjön.
Yes.
Yes. So basically, that is a very nice windmill Dutch village.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was quite amazed when I get there because I have never seen windmill that authentic. I probably see some windmill, but it's kind of like modern style.
Right.
You know, long, and the fan is very thin. But this one is really different.
Yes.
I guess those windmills are there for a couple of maybe 100 years. I guess so.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about Sandnessjön is that it's all the buildings in there are authentic. They're really old. The only thing that's not authentic is the place itself. So they put all kind of old buildings together from different places, put them just there to make it more accessible for tourists. And the interesting thing is it's not just a museum, there's also people living there actually. So that makes it quite special and authentic, even though it's like a super touristy place. I mean, you see tourists each and every day from all over the world, but that shouldn't discourage you to visit it, but because it's still a real nice place. And that's very uncommon in the Netherlands. It's free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then right after Sandnessjön, we had this tiny little bit kind of trip to Zandijk.
Yes.
Which is the city that is next to Sandnessjön.
Yeah. Well, it's more like a town. It's
more like a town.
Yeah, it's not big, but that's more the real version of the place, basically. So that's not a museum. That's like a real village.
Yes.
It's on the opposite side of the river.
Right.
And that's a nice contrast between the two to see.
Yeah. Then the second city that we went, it was Haarlem. So if I'm not mistaken, Haarlem is the capital city of Northern Holland province.
That's correct.
That's
yes.
correct.
Yes.
So the first thing that came to my mind that when we arrived there, immediately I noticed that the train station is actually quite old and quite authentic.
Exactly. It's the oldest train station in the Netherlands, and it's part of the oldest train track in the Netherlands, which goes from Haarlem to Amsterdam.
Right.
Which nowadays takes about 15 to 20 minutes, I think, to travel.
Wow. So in the past, I assume that people maybe work in Amsterdam and live in Haarlem.
I'm not quite sure why they chose this particular route to have the first railway in the Netherlands.
Right.
But yeah, back then those two cities were already very significant, and maybe for that reason they thought let's do it here.
Right, yeah. And the second thing that made me had a good impression about is the town center, the city center, Haarlem center.
Yes.
Yeah, that I see a lot of the bars, restaurant nearby and full of people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I do also heard that Netherlands has kind of released the restrictions from COVID like a month ago.
That's correct.
Yeah, so a month ago, I guess it's empty. It was empty
Yes,
there.
yes. So people were craving for, going back to the bars, going back to the restaurants without any restrictions like wearing a face mask. So now the only thing you need to do is scan your QR code when you enter a bar or restaurant. And it's not even necessary if you're gonna sit outside. So if you're just sitting outside on a terrace, there's basically no more restrictions at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So each and every day we see a little bit of sun, like today, by the way. It's a very nice day for October in the Netherlands. So you really see people are really longing for, having a drink outside, enjoying the sun, enjoying the view, people walking by. So it's really a little bit of this feeling like we're getting back to normal a little bit. So
Right. Yeah, exactly. Then I think the next place that we went was to visit your friend that is in Zandvoort.
Zandvoort, yes.
Zandvoort.
Yes, the official name is Zandvoort aan Zee, which means Zandvoort upon the sea. And it's a very popular coastal city where also many tourists come to enjoy the beach, the sea, food. It's not particularly a pretty city, I would say. I hope I don't offend too many people now, but the location is wonderful. It's close to Amsterdam, it's close to Haarlem, so it's very easy to access, and it has a beautiful white beach and many facilities.
Yeah, I was actually among all the cities. I didn't connect that much with Zandvoort, but probably it's also because by the time we arrived there, it was kind of late in the evening.
That's correct, and
late in the afternoon.
It has a pretty city center, but it's very small. We didn't see that part because we were kind of late, so maybe, and also it's not really beach season anymore, so the place was kind of empty. And I think that may have given you the impression of, well, maybe not so great place, which I can understand. But I really think in summer, when it's full of tourists, it's really a nice place.
I would definitely like to visit that city in summer, because I used to live in Cyprus and Greece, where there are four of the beaches and similar stuff. So I definitely wanted to see how beaches look like in Northern Europe.
Yes.
Yeah. So right after that, then we had a 1 full day trip to 3 cities. The first one was Leiden. So Leiden was also the city where my roommate used to study. So I know that Leiden University, of course, that is a very popular one. But when I went there, actually when I arrived there, when I was walking around, that kind of cozy, like university town sort of feeling just come to me, makes me feel very comfortable.
Yes.
Like I would think that I can, study there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's also I think we went to like a hill, and there you can see the whole view of the town.
Yeah, that was also beautiful.
Yeah, that was also beautiful.
Actually, that was new for me too. I didn't know it exists. But it was really a nice place to look over the city a little bit. So yeah, beautiful. And it's true what you say. Cities that have a university, they have a special vibe. I guess it's because it's full of young people, which means lots of bars, nice restaurants, just like a very relaxed and pleasant vibe. And so far we've been to. Actually, we've only been to university cities, I think. Well, except for Zaanse Schans, of course, which is a tourist place. But all the big cities we've been visiting, they all have universities. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, I think not only in Netherlands but also in other countries in Europe that they don't make the university that like obvious.
Mhm.
The whole universities are combined with the town.
Yes.
That makes people feel so much kind of relaxed, like you are living in the area where you study.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
True.
yeah, definitely. I definitely recommend Leiden. And also, after that we took the train directly, went to Den Haag,
Exactly.
or in English the Haag. I'm still struggling with the name. Could
Yes.
you actually pronounce the full name of the
Yeah,
Haag?
it's the new name for The Hague, as the English people call it, is Den Haag. But we also have like the old-fashioned way to pronounce it or to write it, and that's Schravenhagen. But it's kind of complicated, and even
Yes.
for Dutch people, because it contains an apostrophe, it contains a hyphen, so not many people use that anymore and just stick to Den Haag.
Right.
So that's the name most people use.
Yeah, true.
But it's still, because it has this at the end, it's still not easy for foreigners to pronounce, for most of the people
Yeah.
from abroad. So yeah.
Yeah, but it was really, although we were there just only for a couple of hours, but it was really, really massive, a
Yeah.
beautiful city. I like the idea that when we get off from the train on the way to visit the building of, what does it called? The judgment?
The Palace of Justice?
Yeah, the
in
Palace
English,
of
I think?
Justice.
Yeah.
The Palace of Justice. That we accidentally saw another beautiful building. And then actually we figured out that it was a high school. Was it like a high
Yes,
yeah.
yes, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and immediately reminds me of Hogwarts. I was like, oh, the kids here must be so lucky to study in such a building like that. Because in Iceland, we do have some nice buildings, but not that many like
Mhm.
in Netherlands. So it's a big different thing. We're going to talk about the buildings a little later on.
Yes.
So The Hague also is the capital city for the politics in Netherlands.
Yeah, it's the seat of the parliament, and it's not the capital of the Netherlands like many people think.
Yeah.
But the parliament is there. So yes, our laws, politics are made in The Hague mainly.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the same time, this city is the capital of the province of South Holland.
Yeah. Yes. And we, when we were visiting the area, we see also a lot of embassies.
Yes.
Of course, the embassies
Yeah.
are there, and also the royal palaces, the real royal palaces where the Dutch royal family they live in.
Well, they don't live there, not downtown The Hague. So their palaces, their houses basically, they're outside The Hague and well hidden to the public, so you cannot easily reach them or see them.
Right.
But the palace where the king works, for instance, and where the queen works in The Hague,
Yeah.
that's very centrally located, and you can also easily see it from the street.
Right.
You cannot go in, obviously. You can enter the gardens, though, that belong to it.
Yeah.
But the palace itself is off limits for tourists.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And after the Hague, then we went to Delft.
Yes.
Yeah, which is also another beautiful town. What I like about the cities in Netherlands is that they're so much connected with water. Like a lot of cities, they have canals, they have rivers, lakes, maybe not.
But ponds at
But
least?
ponds
Yeah.
at least, yes,
Mhm.
exactly. So
Lots of water.
a lot-
That's for
yes,
sure.
Yeah, and I always feel good when
Mhm.
I visit or live in a city where it's surrounded by water. It makes me peaceful.
Right.
Yeah, kind of the feeling. And in Delft, I know that they have this very popular painting thing Delft Blue.
Ah, the Delft Blue, yes.
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 The Delft Blue.
Exactly.
Maybe you know a little bit story about Delft Blue?
Well, actually, so it's white ceramics. They are painted with black paint, but once you take it out of the furnace, you know, to make it hard, basically, the black turns into blue, and this city of Delft is known of this technique. So they call it Delft's Blauw, which means Delft Blue, and you see a lot of cheap versions of that, but if you want to have the real stuff, it's very expensive. It's hand painted, handmade, and the thing is, like many things in the Netherlands, it's not originally Dutch, because this technique is basically copied from China.
Right.
So it's not really our invention, I have to admit, but Delft got famous with this technique.
Yeah, you made it popular.
Yes. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. Many things the Netherlands are well known of, they're not really originally Dutch. So we have the tulips, they're from Turkey. We have Santa Claus, who comes from Spain. And what else we have? There was another thing that's not originally Dutch. I guess, you know, maybe syrup waffles. I'm sure they were invented somewhere else. Or, anyways, as long as people enjoy it, I don't think it's very relevant where it was originally invented. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then after that day, we went to another city, which is Rotterdam.
Yes.
I personally was not expected how much I liked that city before I went. But actually I ended up with liking that city a lot. It's a city that, in my opinion, modern cities combined with the old buildings.
Exactly.
Because Rotterdam in the Second World War was quite destroyed.
Yeah, it was
part of the area.
The center part of the Rotterdam was nearly completely destroyed. So,
right.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of new buildings.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I really like the idea, like when you turn around the corner, then you reach to the authentic Dutch area that you can see all these Dutch buildings. And then when you turn another corner, then you just went straight ahead to these skyscrapers, modern building areas.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing.
You know, at first sight, maybe Rotterdam looks a bit messy in a way for that reason, you know, because you see everything like old, new, old, all mixed up. But if you look a little bit more intensive, I think you will see the real beauty of the city.
Yeah.
And so Rotterdam was never a real tourist place, I think, you know, compared to the other big Dutch cities. But nowadays they caught up really well. And I think the city is really beautiful now. Also, the Eurovision Song Contest maybe helped a little bit.
Exactly.
And I could really recommend, if you want to see a not so typical Dutch city, have a look at Rotterdam. It's really a nice place.
Yeah. And make sure that you're gonna try the water taxi.
Yeah, that's fun.
It is so much fun. Literally, it's like a boat.
Yes.
But they drive so fast.
They're super fast. They bump on the water surface, and it's a fun experience. A little bit scary maybe, but nice. Mm-hmm.
Yes, true. Yeah, I would definitely recommend Rotterdam for a trip.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So after Rotterdam, we went to Utrecht, which is actually another city that I like very much. What I like about Utrecht is that, of course, this city, just like other cities, they have canals, but I feel like Utrecht, they have all these lovely little paths that you go, and it doesn't look that much organized, which can always bring you surprises, and I like that way. That's why Utrecht, for me, it's very, very beautiful.
Yes.
It's probably my top three, one of my top three cities. Yeah.
And what I liked, when I did some sightseeing with Stefan, what I really liked is that, he really saw all the differences between all the cities we've seen. When I show people around in Dutch cities, I'm always a little bit afraid that people might think, oh, it all looks alike, So there's this central square, there's the church, there is a couple of canals, there's a couple of drawing bridges, old houses, all very quaint and sweet, but all a little bit alike. But he could really see the difference, between the cities, and maybe they're subtle, but they're there, and I think for that reason they're all worth visiting.
Yeah.
And the good thing about our country is that it's quite tiny, and all cities worth seeing are quite close to each other, so it's really easy, to see multiple cities in one day. So for that reason,
True.
This was a good thing to do, and it was worth it because for you it was a nice experience.
Last but not least, Amsterdam. This is actually the second time for visiting Amsterdam,
Right.
because I went to Amsterdam in 2016 in December winter time with my sister. That time the time was quite limited, so we only managed to visit like few places. We walked around the city center in Amsterdam, and then we went to Van Gogh Museum the last day. And during the time in between, we also took the train to Brussels. So we didn't actually have that many experience in Amsterdam. But this time we walked around the area a bit more and had more fun. For example, about this thing that I really want to mention. How interesting to see the prostitute windows that is next to a big church.
Exactly, yeah.
I guess that view you can only get in Amsterdam.
I think that's pretty, special.
Right?
Yeah.
Because these two things is kind of like they're not really together. But here we go.
Yes. Yeah, nowadays this looks very odd, like a brothel next to a church. But back in the old days, actually the church offered protection for the prostitutes. So when they were in trouble, they had like a safe haven inside those churches, and they really got protected by the church. So there was a reason for that.
Right, exactly, yes. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of the difference between Iceland and Netherlands. I know that you have been to Iceland once.
Yeah, twice.
Twice, actually.
Twice, yes.
Yeah, but it's been a while ago,
Yes,
I guess.
yeah.
Yeah. First things that I would like to talk about is the dresses. My opinion about how Dutch people dress here, I feel like they're dressed more business vibe. No matter where I go, like in the train, metro, tram, like people sitting in a car, I feel like they're more kind of a business vibe to me.
Okay.
Maybe that's a normal way of people dressing. Like you dress suit, you dress business when you work.
Yes, but generally no. I think people look very casual.
Okay.
Also at work, actually, the dress code is pretty relaxed in the Netherlands.
Okay.
But maybe because we've been traveling during rush hour a lot here in Amsterdam, you might have seen more than usual business people on their way to or from work. So that may have given you a bit of a false impression.
Right.
But generally speaking, the dress code here is relaxed. Also business dress code. So
Okay.
yeah.
So in that case, then I think it would be the same in Iceland.
I think
because
so.
People don't really dress that much all the time like British people do.
Frankly, I have not much of recollection regarding dress code in Iceland. I've been to Iceland, when the weather was really cold. So I haven't seen much more than winter coats, and that's like winter boots, so I don't remember much about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
For that reason, I'm really, really happy that I'm gonna revisit Iceland, you know, to see how it is now,
Mm.
see if I can see any differences between what is now and what I have in my memory. So yeah, let's see.
Yeah. Okay, the second thing that I want to talk about is, of course, the food.
Yes.
What was the name that you cooked me this vegetable meatballs? First that I
The
arrived?
bitterballen,
Yeah, that
which
was-
means literally bitter balls.
Mhm.
I think that's about the number one Dutch snack that is, you know, eaten when you have a beer or just meeting people. It's very common. You eat it with mustard,
Yeah.
and normally they're made of beef or veal.
Mhm.
But nowadays, people become more and more vegetarian or
Right.
even vegan. They're also available in those kind of variants, like you know, filled with any kind of vegetables or meat replacing products. But they
Yeah.
taste just as nice, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And also we managed to actually go for an Indonesian
yes,
restaurant when we were visiting Haarlem. That food was amazing.
it's amazing, right?
I guess
Yeah.
Indonesian food is popular here.
Very, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That also has something due to the colonialism, so that's why you
Yeah,
have
so for that reason,
Yeah.
because Indonesia used to be colonized by the Netherlands, we took over a lot of their culture and food, of course.
yeah.
And Indonesian food is really delicious. What is very special is the Dutch version of their food, which is called rijsttafel. It's basically a big collection of all kind of little dishes with
Yes.
Indonesian food.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was really amazing.
And it's not only delicious, it also looks very festive, you know, to have dinner together with a good friend and then have 1,000 of dishes on your table and you can sample them all.
Yeah.
And you probably will like them all, and the ones you don't like you just leave out, and
Yes,
it's really great. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it. It's very popular here. It's not really cheap,
Yeah.
as all food is not really cheap here, but still, I guess if you're from Iceland and you compare your prices to ours, I think you will be pleasantly surprised. So
Yes, exactly. The other thing, the other food that I want to mention is Suriname.
yeah, Surinaams, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Because I have never heard this food ever
Mhm.
before. So this was quite interesting for me to try the food first time in Netherlands. I
Yes.
guess Suriname food is probably also very popular, just like
Yes.
Indonesian food here.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
It's popular because it's very tasty. It's a bit
Mhm.
spicy also.
Yeah.
I think it's more like a snack though. So it's not really that you go to a Suriname restaurant so much.
Right.
They often, you know, have like takeout facilities, so you take it home and eat it.
Mm.
While Indonesian food is also more like an experience, like going out and have this huge rice table. And Suriname maybe not so much, but the food isn't any less delicious. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think, you know, maybe it's a little bit more limited. I mean, I know like 1,000 Indonesian dishes, and I only know a few Suriname dishes, but that may be my lack of experience. I don't know, but I both like them, and yeah, so did you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so about the food, that's what we.
And you know, it's a good thing that we have all this foreign food, you know, from our
Yeah.
previous colonies, because frankly, local cuisine in the Netherlands is not exactly something to write home about. It's not,
Yeah.
I could not even name, I think, like 5 typical Dutch dishes, you know.
Mhm.
They're all like influenced by foreign cuisine, which is a good thing, but
Yeah.
if you ask me name typical Dutch food,
Mm.
I can only come up with very simple, like mashed potatoes mixed with vegetable and a meatball on top, you know, nothing really fancy. So
Yeah.
for that reason, I'm happy that we also have Indonesian, Suriname food, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, regarding Icelandic food, we use a lot of fish. We also use a lot of lamb. I think fish and lamb are the top two most common meats. And of course, they have the vegetarian food for the vegan choices.
Mhm.
But in general, I would say maybe the choices for the food in terms of international food are not that many, like in Netherlands. In Amsterdam, you can basically find all different kind of food. In downtown Reykjavik, you can find some. We have Italian, we have Danish food, of course we have traditional Icelandic food, and we have some of the other foods that I cannot remember at the moment. But yes, I definitely love the food here. Yeah.
Well, I'm very looking forward to sample typical Icelandic food. Frankly, I have no recollection of what I've eaten back then in Iceland, so it's gonna be new. Let's see
Yeah.
what's there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So regarding the houses, the buildings, what I wanted to say is that during my 1 week trip here, I see quite a lot of buildings are leaning,
Yes.
and are leaning in a different way.
Yes.
Some of the buildings are leaning in front,
Yes.
and some of the buildings are leaning to the side.
Exactly.
Is there any differences between these
Yes.
two?
So the buildings that lean to the front, that's intentional. It had to do with tax reasons, also practical reasons. Like
Right.
protecting the facade against the rain. But also you see a lot of buildings in old cities, especially here in Amsterdam, that are leaning to the side, and that has to do with the unstable soil,
Yeah.
which is saturated with water. So back in the old days, they used wooden piles as a foundation to stabilize the houses. But the problem was that this wood started to rot, and the foundation basically went down the drain, literally. And they had to reinforce it, but in between, those houses kept sagging and tilting, and that looks very funny, but also a bit scary when you look at it. So nothing in downtown Amsterdam seems to be completely straight.
Right, yeah, that is something very, very interesting to see, because in Iceland, if the house, like that way, then probably consider that the house, need to be maintained very much.
Right.
And the majority of the houses are, in downtown we have a lot of old houses, like old style, nice buildings, and in the outside of the downtown area, the majority of the houses are quite modern style. So here in Netherlands, I see that in most of the town center or city center, they have the traditional buildings, the old buildings,
Right.
that has maintained quite well, apart from this leaning problem.
Yes.
Apart from Rotterdam. Rotterdam is different because some of the area they completely rebuilt it, and you can find some very, very tall buildings in Rotterdam. Yeah. So finally, I want to talk about the transportation. I am just simply amazed how good the public transportation here is in Netherlands.
Yes, especially in the west of the country, I have to say,
Yeah.
where we are now, because this is where all the big cities, or most of the big cities of the Netherlands are. So yes, especially here, public transportation is very well developed, it's frequent, fairly reliable, and I use it a lot. I don't have a car, I don't need a car. I live here in Amsterdam. There's only parking problems. It's expensive to park your car here, so I don't really miss it. So I completely rely on public transportation. And just in case you need a car for whatever reason, we have those shared cars. You can rent one. There's plenty of possibilities to get around here. And of course there is the bike
Yes, exactly.
for short distances.
The bikes, the trams and the
Yeah.
trains, the metro, and yeah, all the public transportation are just amazing. Well, in Iceland, we have public transportation, basically buses, but the buses are not going to everywhere, every corner of the city.
Right.
No, they're not. So it's more practical to have a car. Otherwise, you feel like pretty much disabled. In a
Right.
way. Of course, if you live in downtown Reykjavik, maybe you can get by because we have this kind of scooter that you can just, scan the code and get on, and then you go to the places where it's not that far. But when the weather is cold, like when the weather is not good, which is pretty much in the case that quite often, then you just have to be very, very careful with
Yep.
that. So, yeah. So, well, I would have to say thank you very much for joining me for this episode to talk about my trip to Netherlands.
My
and
pleasure.
Also
It
the
was great
differences.
to have you here. And thank you for listening. And I think it would be interesting, once I've done the visit to Iceland, that we can do like another comparison,
Yeah,
based on my new experiences with Iceland.
Yeah.
So I hope to see a bit, because this time I will stay longer in Iceland, like 10 days, I think.
Yes.
The previous times I've only been there like 4 or 5 days, so that's quite short to get a good overall impression of the country.
Yes.
So now I really hope to meet some Icelanders, some real Icelanders,
Yes.
who are hard to find in the world. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that and see what my new impression is gonna be.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty confident that it's gonna be a good one because I really, what I know of Iceland is just very positive, and the beauty of this country is just incomparable. So yeah, let's see.
Yes, well, if you wanted to have a trip to Netherlands, then hope that this episode will give you some nice advices, and in terms of the cities where you should go, and in terms of what. And once again, if you like my episodes, like my stories, and can follow, subscribe my channel, and follow my social media, as you can see on the screen. Alright, well, I promise that the next one will not come for in that long time. So I will see you all in the next episode. Bye!
Tot ziens!
Tot ziens!